The wine glass shattered against the wall, red liquid dripping down the cream-colored paint like blood. "You ungrateful little..." Mark's words slurred together as he lunged across the dinner table, his meaty hand connecting with Emma's cheek with a crack that echoed through the private dining room. Emma's head snapped to the side, her vision blurring. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth. Around them, the ambient chatter of the restaurant's other patrons seemed to fade into nothing. Her stepfather's face, bloated and red from years of drinking, loomed over her as she pressed her palm against her burning cheek. "Mark, please." Her mother's voice was thin, trembling. Margaret sat frozen in her chair, her own hands shaking around her napkin. "Not here, not in public. Not here, not in public. Never, not at all. Never, don't touch my daughter." Emma had heard those same words 1,000 times in the past 3 years since her mother had married this monster. "She needs to learn some respect," Mark snarled, reaching for Emma again. His fingers closed around her wrist, yanking her half out of her chair. "Running her mouth about my business, questioning me in front of my associates. I just asked why you were 2 hours late," Emma gasped, trying to pull free. At 24, she should have moved out years ago. But her mother's health was failing, and someone needed to be there when Mark came home drunk and angry. Someone needed to stand between him and the woman who'd become too afraid to stand up for herself. The restaurant around them had gone deadly quiet. Emma could feel dozens of eyes on them, but no one moved. No one ever moved. People looked away from domestic disputes. They pretended not to see. "You don't question me, girl. You don't speak unless... Remove your hand from her. Now." The voice cut through the room like a blade, low, controlled, and absolutely lethal. Emma's gaze snapped toward the sound. A man stood 3 tables away, rising from his seat with the fluid grace of a predator. He was tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, and probably cost more than Emma's yearly salary at the bookstore. But it wasn't his appearance that made Emma's breath catch. It was his eyes, ice blue and completely devoid of warmth as they fixed on Mark's hand around Emma's wrist. "This is none of your business, pal," Mark growled, but Emma felt his grip loosen slightly. "This is a family matter. I'm making it my business." The man moved closer, and Emma noticed 2 other men standing from his table, following at a respectful distance. They wore the same dark suits, the same watchful expressions. "You have 3 seconds to let her go." Mark laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Or what? You gonna call the manager?" He tightened his grip on Emma's wrist, making her gasp. "This is my stepdaughter. I'm teaching her some manners. By putting your hands on her?" The stranger was closer now, close enough that Emma could see the dangerous glint in those cold eyes. "That's not teaching. That's assault. Like I said, this isn't one." The single word dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. Mark's face flushed darker. "You threatening me?" "2." Emma's mother made a small, frightened sound. Emma had never seen anyone stand up to Mark like this. Her stepfather was a big man, easily 250 pounds, with the kind of bulk that came from both muscle and too many beers. He intimidated everyone, his employees, his family, even the neighbors who heard the shouting through the walls. But this stranger wasn't intimidated at all. "Listen here, you arrogant!" The stranger moved. Emma barely saw it happen. One moment he was 3 feet away, the next his hand was locked around Mark's wrist, applying pressure that made her stepfather's face contort with pain. Mark's fingers sprang open, releasing Emma, and she stumbled backward. 3, the stranger said softly. "You're lucky we're in public." Mark tried to pull away, but the stranger's grip was iron. "Let go of me. Do you know who I am? I'll have you arrested for assault." "Will you?" The stranger's smile was cold. "Please, call the police. I'm sure they'd be fascinated to hear why you were striking a young woman in a public restaurant. Perhaps they'd like to examine those bruises on her arms as well." the ones that look a few days old. Emma's hand instinctively moved to her sleeve, pulling it down over the fingerprint-shaped marks on her upper arm. She'd worn a cardigan to dinner specifically to hide them. How had he noticed? I don't know what she's told you, but I don't need her to tell me anything. I have eyes. The stranger released Mark's wrist with a slight push that sent him stumbling back against the table. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sit down. You're going to finish your meal in silence, and you're going to think very carefully about the choices that led you to this moment. You can't tell me what to do in front of my own family, Mark blustered, but his voice had lost its edge. He was rubbing his wrist, and Emma could see the fear beginning to creep into his eyes. The stranger turned his attention to Emma's mother. Ma'am, is this man your husband? Margaret nodded mutely, her face pale. Does he hit you too? The question hung in the air. Emma saw her mother's eyes fill with tears, saw her mouth open and close without sound. Finally, Margaret looked away. That was answer enough. The stranger's expression hardened further, if that was possible. He reached into his jacket pocket. Emma saw Mark tense, saw the two men behind the stranger shift, and pulled out a business card. He held it out to Emma. Take this. Emma's hand shook as she reached for it. Their fingers brushed, and she felt a jolt of electricity run up her arm. The card was simple. A name, Dante Romano, and a phone number. Nothing else. If he touches you again, Dante said, his eyes locked on hers, you call me, immediately. Do you understand? Emma nodded, unable to find her voice. Up close, she could see that his eyes weren't just blue. They had flecks of silver in them, like ice crystals. And despite the hardness in his expression, despite the obvious danger radiating from him, she didn't feel afraid. She felt safe. For the first time in 3 years, standing in a public restaurant with wine soaking into the carpet, and her cheek still throbbing, Emma felt safe. Good. Dante turned back to Mark, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. As for you, if I hear that you've laid a hand on either of these women again, you'll answer to me. And trust me when I say you don't want that. You think you can just walk in here and I know I can. Dante leaned in close, his voice dropping so low that Emma had to strain to hear it. Because unlike you, I'm not a coward who gets his power from hurting people weaker than himself. I get my power from destroying men like you. He straightened his jacket, his gaze sweeping over the frozen restaurant patrons. Enjoy your meal, everyone. Then he was walking away, his two companions falling into step beside him. Emma watched him go, the business card clutched in her trembling hand. Sit down, Mark hissed at her. But the fury in his voice was undercut by something else now. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. Emma didn't sit. She looked at her mother, at the woman who'd once been so strong, so vibrant, now reduced to a shell who couldn't even defend her own daughter. Love and frustration warred in Emma's chest. I'm leaving, Emma said quietly. You're not going anywhere, Mark started, but when she met his eyes, he faltered. Because Emma wasn't the same frightened girl who'd walked into this restaurant an hour ago. Something had shifted. That stranger, Dante Romano, had done more than just intervene. He'd shown her that there were people who wouldn't look away, that there were people who would stand up to men like Mark, that she didn't have to endure this. Yes, Emma said, her voice stronger now. I am. She turned and walked toward the exit, half expecting Mark to follow, to grab her, to drag her back. But he didn't. When she glanced back from the doorway, she saw him slumped in his chair, staring at the table, his earlier bravado completely deflated. Her mother caught her eye. For just a moment, Emma thought she saw a flicker of the woman she used to know, proud, independent, fierce. Then Margaret looked away, and the moment was gone. Emma pushed through the door and out into the cool evening air. Her legs were shaking, adrenaline crashing through her system. She made it 3 steps down the sidewalk before she had to stop, pressing her back against the brick wall of the building, trying to catch her breath. The business card was still in her hand, slightly crumpled from her grip. Dante Romano. Who was he? What kind of man stepped into a domestic situation like that without hesitation? Who moved with that kind of controlled danger? You handled that well. Emma's head snapped up. Dante stood a few feet away, leaning against a sleek black car that probably cost more than her childhood home. He'd been waiting for her. "You followed me," she said, her heart hammering. "I wanted to make sure you got out safely." He tilted his head, studying her. "Will you go back? To that dinner?" "No." "To that house?" Emma hesitated. The truth was complicated. She had an apartment, technically, a tiny studio across town that she could barely afford. But she'd been staying at her mother's house for the past 6 months, ever since Margaret's diabetes had gotten worse. Ever since the falls had started. Ever since Mark's drinking had escalated from nightly beers to weekend binges to daily blackouts. "My mother needs me," she finally said. Dante's expression didn't change, but she saw something flicker in those ice-blue eyes. Understanding, maybe? Or disappointment. Your mother is an adult who's made her choices. You shouldn't sacrifice yourself for someone who won't protect you. The words stung because they were true. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." He pushed off from the car, closing the distance between them. "I understand that you're loyal and compassionate and far braver than you think you are. I also understand that loyalty to people who hurt you isn't loyalty. It's self-destruction." Emma's throat tightened. "She's my mother. And he's going to kill one of you eventually." The bluntness of it made Emma flinch, but she couldn't argue. She'd thought the same thing herself, late at night when she heard the shouting, when she saw the new bruises her mother tried to hide. "Why do you care?" Emma asked. "You don't even know me." Dante was quiet for a long moment, and Emma found herself unable to look away from his gaze. Finally, he said, "I know what it looks like when someone needs help, and I know what happens when no one offers it." There was a story there, Emma realized. Something in his past that had carved those hard edges into him. "I appreciate what you did in there," she said, "but I can't just abandon my mother. I'm not asking you to abandon her. I'm asking you to save yourself." Dante reached into his jacket again and pulled out a second card. "This is the number for a women's shelter. They have resources, legal aid, counseling, safe housing. If your mother decides she wants out, they can help her." Emma took the card with numb fingers. A shelter. She'd thought about it before, of course, but every time she'd started to research, Mark had appeared, or her mother had asked her to stay for dinner, or there'd been some crisis that needed managing. There was always a reason to stay. "And if she doesn't want out?" Emma asked quietly. Dante's jaw tightened. "Then you still have my number. For you. I don't understand why you're doing this. Why you care about a stranger. Maybe I see something worth protecting." The words hung in the air between them. Loaded with meaning Emma didn't dare examine too closely. This man was dangerous. She could sense that on every level. The way he moved, the way his companions had responded to him, the casual authority in his voice when he'd faced down Mark. But he'd also been the only person in that restaurant to stand up for her. "Thank you," Emma whispered. Dante nodded once. "Be careful. Men like your stepfather don't handle humiliation well." Tonight he was caught off guard, but once he's had time to stew on it. He left the sentence unfinished, but Emma understood. Mark would be furious. "I'll be okay," she said, trying to sound confident. Dante's expression suggested he didn't believe her. "Keep your phone on you, and remember, if anything happens, you call me. Anytime. Day or night. I don't even know who you are." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "No, you don't. But you know I'll come if you need me. That's enough for now." He turned back toward his car, and Emma felt an unexpected surge of panic at the thought of him leaving, which was insane. She'd met this man 20 minutes ago. She had no claim on him, no reason to expect him to stay. "Wait!" she called out. He paused, looking back over his shoulder. "Will I see you again?" "Do you want to?" The question caught her off guard. Did she want to see him again? This intense, mysterious stranger who'd inserted himself into her disaster of a life? Yes, she realized. She desperately wanted to see him again. "I don't know if that's a good idea," she said instead. Dante's smile widened slightly, and for the first time it reached his eyes. "Probably not, but that's never stopped me before." He climbed into his car, and Emma watched as it pulled away from the curb, disappearing into the evening traffic. Only when the taillights had vanished completely did she look down at the 2 cards in her hand. One with his name and number, one for the women's shelter, 2 lifelines, 2 possible futures. Emma's phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out to find 3 missed calls from Mark and 2 text messages. "Where are you?" "Get back here now. We need to talk." She deleted both messages without responding and started walking toward the subway station. Her studio apartment was 45 minutes away. It would be cramped and cold and lonely, but it would be hers. She was halfway down the subway steps when her phone rang again. Mark's name flashed on the screen. Emma stared at it for a long moment, her thumb hovering over the decline button. Then she thought about Dante's words. "Your mother is an adult who's made her choices." Emma declined the call and blocked the number. It was a start. 3 days passed before Emma saw Dante Romano again. 3 days of sleeping in her own bed, of going to work at the bookstore without checking over her shoulder, of slowly beginning to breathe easier. She'd called her mother twice. Both times Margaret had insisted everything was fine, that Mark had calmed down, that Emma was overreacting. Emma had stopped calling after that. She was shelving books in the literature section when she felt the now familiar prickle of awareness on the back of her neck. She turned to find Dante standing at the end of the aisle, looking completely out of place among the worn paperbacks and faded carpet. His suit today was charcoal gray, and he held a book in his hands, The Count of Monte Cristo. "Seems appropriate," Emma said, her heart doing a strange flutter in her chest. "Revenge and redemption." "One of my favorites," Dante replied, moving closer. "Though I've always thought the revenge part was more satisfying than the redemption." "That's a little dark." "I'm a little dark." He set the book on the shelf between them. "How have you been?" Emma glanced around, but the store was nearly empty. Just her co-worker, Sarah, at the register, pretending not to stare at the gorgeous man in the expensive suit. "I've been okay. Better than okay, actually. I've been staying at my apartment." "Good." Dante's gaze swept over her face, lingering on her cheek where Mark had hit her. The bruise had faded from purple to a yellowish green. "And your stepfather?" "I haven't seen him. He's called a few times, but I blocked his number." "Smart." Dante picked up another book, examining its cover without really seeing it. "I've been keeping an eye on things, just to make sure he doesn't show up here and cause problems." Emma's breath caught. "You've been watching me?" "I've been watching him," Dante corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." He set the book down and met her eyes. "Watching you would be for my benefit. Watching him is for your protection." It should have scared her, the casual way he admitted to surveillance. It should have sent up every red flag, triggered every warning bell. Instead, Emma felt that same strange sense of safety she'd experienced in the restaurant. "Who are you, Dante Romano?" she asked softly. "Really?" He was quiet for a moment, and Emma wondered if he'd deflect, change the subject, walk away. Then he said, "I'm someone who understands what it means to be powerless, and I've spent my life making sure I'm never in that position again." "That's not really an answer." "No, it's not." He moved around the shelf until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I can't tell you everything about my life, Emma. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can tell you this. I don't make idle promises. When I said you could call me if you needed help, I meant it." "Why?" Emma pressed. Why do you care so much about someone you don't know? Dante reached up, and Emma held her breath as his fingers traced the edge of the fading bruise on her cheek. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, and completely at odds with the dangerous aura he projected. Because when I look at you, I see someone who deserves better, he said quietly. And because I have the power to give you better, if you'll let me. Emma's pulse was racing. I'm not a damsel in distress. No, Dante agreed, his hand falling away. You're a woman who's been carrying the weight of other people's problems for too long, but you don't have to carry them alone. I barely know you. Then get to know me. It wasn't a question or a request. It was a challenge. Have dinner with me, somewhere public, somewhere safe. Let me prove that not all men are like your stepfather. Emma knew she should say no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming at her to step back, to maintain distance, to not get involved with this clearly dangerous man. But she'd spent 3 years being rational, 3 years staying in a toxic situation because it was the responsible thing to do, the loyal thing, the right thing. And where had it gotten her? A slap across the face and a mother who couldn't even defend her own daughter. Maybe it was time to be a little irrational. Okay, Emma said. Dinner. Dante's smile transformed his entire face. It was still dangerous, still predatory, but there was genuine warmth there too. Tomorrow night, I'll pick you up at 7. You don't know where I live? Yes, I do. At her startled look, he added, I told you, I've been keeping an eye on things. That includes making sure you made it home safely. Emma should have been angry, should have been outraged at the invasion of privacy. Instead, she felt cared for, which was possibly the most messed up part of this entire situation. Just dinner, she said firmly. Nothing more. Just dinner, Dante agreed, but his eyes suggested he was already planning much more than dinner. He bought The Count of Monte Cristo on his way out, along with 3 other classics Emma had mentioned during their conversation. Sarah rang him up with wide eyes, and the moment he left, she practically flew to Emma's side. Who was that? Sarah demanded. And why have you been holding out on me? I'm not holding out. I barely know him. Well, you better get to know him fast. Because men like that don't stay single long. Sarah fanned herself dramatically. Those eyes! That suit! Did you see the way he looked at you? Emma had seen. That was the problem. Dante Romano looked at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting, something worth claiming. And God help her. She liked it. Dante picked her up at exactly 7 the next evening, driving a different car this time. Still black, still expensive, but slightly less ostentatious than the first one. Emma had spent 2 hours getting ready, trying on and discarding half her wardrobe before settling on a simple navy dress that made her feel confident without being overdressed. You look beautiful, Dante said when she opened the door, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. Thank you. You look nice too. Nice was an understatement. He looked devastating in black pants and a crisp white shirt, the top button undone, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it. The restaurant he took her to was small and intimate, tucked away on a quiet side street. It was the kind of place that didn't advertise, didn't need to. The people who knew about it knew, and everyone else was out of luck. How did you find this place? Emma asked as they were seated at a corner table, away from the windows and other diners. I own it. Of course he did. The waiter appeared with a bottle of wine Emma knew cost more than her rent, and throughout the meal, Dante was the perfect gentleman, attentive, charming, asking questions about her life, her work, her dreams. He listened like every word mattered, like she was the only person in the world. It was intoxicating, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was something beneath the surface, something he wasn't telling her. Your turn, she said after the main course. Tell me about you. What do you want to know? Everything. Where you're from, what you do, why you have people following you around in suits. Dante's expression shifted slightly. the easy charm cooling into something more guarded. I'm from New York originally, Brooklyn. My family has been in the import-export business for generations. Import-export, Emma repeated. That's delightfully vague. It's meant to be. He took a sip of his wine. My work isn't always conventional, but it's legitimate, if that's what you're worried about. Emma wasn't sure she believed him. Or rather, she suspected legitimate might be technically true while skating some very fine legal lines. And the men who follow you around? Security. I've made some enemies over the years. What kind of enemies? The kind that make security necessary. Dante leaned back in his chair, studying her. Does it bother you? Not knowing exactly what I do? Yes. No. Maybe. I don't know, Emma admitted. Part of me thinks I should run far away from you. You're clearly dangerous. Clearly involved in things I probably shouldn't be involved in. And the other part? The other part feels safer with you than I've felt in years. The honesty of it hung between them. Dante's expression softened, and he reached across the table to take her hand. I can't promise you a normal life, Emma. I can't promise you safety from everything. But I can promise you that as long as you're with me, no one will hurt you the way your stepfather did. No one will raise a hand to you without answering to me. That's not a healthy basis for a relationship. No, he agreed, but it's honest. And I think you've had enough of people lying to you. Emma couldn't argue with that. They talked for hours, until the restaurant was empty, and the staff was clearly waiting for them to leave. Dante paid the bill, refusing to let Emma even glance at it, and drove her home through the quiet city streets. When they pulled up in front of her building, Emma found herself reluctant to leave the car's warm interior, to break the spell of the evening. Thank you, she said, for dinner, for everything. Emma. Dante's voice was low, intense. I need you to understand something. When I saw him hit you in that restaurant, something in me changed. I've seen violence before. God knows I've perpetrated enough of it myself. But seeing him hurt you... His hand tightened on the steering wheel. I wanted to destroy him. I still want to destroy him. Dante, I'm not a good man. I've done things I can't take back, hurt people who probably didn't deserve it. But I'm trying to be better. For you, I want to be better. Emma's heart was pounding. You don't even know me. Then let me know you. Let me prove that I'm worth the risk. She should say no. Should thank him for dinner, get out of the car, and never see him again. Instead, she leaned across the center console and kissed him. It was supposed to be brief, a simple thank you, but the moment their lips touched, something ignited between them. Dante's hand came up to cup her face, and Emma melted into him, into the safety and danger and desperate need in his kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma whispered, I'm not looking for someone to save me. Good, Dante murmured against her lips. Because I'm not looking for someone to save. I'm looking for someone to stand beside. Someone to protect. Someone to... He stopped himself. Someone to what? Someone to love, he finished quietly. Emma's breath caught. We just met. I know. This is crazy. I know that too. Dante pressed his forehead against hers. But tell me you don't feel it. She couldn't, because she did feel it, this pull toward him, this sense that meeting him had been fate or destiny or whatever force moved the universe. I need to go slow, Emma said. We'll go as slow as you need. She kissed him again, softer this time, then pulled away before she could do something reckless, like invite him upstairs. Good night, Dante. Good night, Emma. He waited until she was inside the building before driving away, and Emma stood in the lobby for a long moment, her fingers pressed to her lips, her heart still racing. What was she getting herself into? Over the next 2 weeks, Emma saw Dante almost every day. He'd appear at the bookstore during her lunch break with coffee and pastries. He'd text her good morning and good night. He took her to museums and art galleries and tiny jazz clubs that made her feel like she'd stepped into another era. and slowly, carefully, he began to reveal more about himself. His family business was indeed import-export, but it straddled the line between legal and criminal. They moved high-end goods, art, antiques, luxury items, and while most of it was legitimate, some of it existed in a gray area that made Emma uncomfortable. "I'm trying to move everything above board," Dante told her one evening as they walked through Central Park. "My father built the business on certain relationships, but I want something different, something cleaner." "Why?" Emma asked. "Because I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. Because I want to build something that lasts, something I can be proud of." He glanced at her. "Because I want a life that could include you, and you deserve better than the world I grew up in." Emma's chest tightened. "You're talking about a future we haven't even discussed." "I know what I want, Emma. I've known since the moment I saw you in that restaurant." Dante stopped walking, turning to face her. "I want you. In my life, in my bed, in my future. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to give you everything you've ever wanted and things you haven't even dreamed of yet." "Dante," Emma's voice came out shaky, "I know it's fast. I know you need time. But I also know that life is too short to pretend we don't feel what we feel." He cupped her face in his hands. "Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me to back off. But don't tell me you don't feel the same way." Emma couldn't, because she did feel the same way. This terrifying, exhilarating certainty that this man, this dangerous, complicated, beautiful man, was meant to be hers. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of me? Of how much I want this. Of how much I want you." Dante kissed her, deep and possessive, and Emma felt her fears melting away. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "Don't be scared. I'll keep you safe." "I don't need you to keep me safe," Emma said. "I need you to stand beside me while I learn to keep myself safe." "Then that's what I'll do." They were still kissing when Emma's phone rang. She almost ignored it, but something made her check the screen. Margaret, her mother. Emma's stomach dropped as she answered. "Mom? Emma?" Her mother's voice was thick with tears. "I need you to come home. Please, it's Mark. He's—" A crash in the background, then her mother's frightened gasp. "Please, Emma, I need you." Emma's blood ran cold. "Mom, get out of there. Go to a neighbor's house." "I can't. He's blocking the door." "Emma, please." The line went dead. Emma stared at her phone, her hands shaking. "I have to go. My stepfather. My mother." But Dante was already pulling out his own phone, already making a call. "Tony, I need you at the Brooks residence. Now. And bring everyone." He hung up and grabbed Emma's hand. "Come on." "What are you doing?" "I'm making sure this ends tonight." They ran to Dante's car, and he drove with controlled precision, weaving through traffic at speeds that should have terrified Emma but somehow didn't. She was too focused on her mother, on the fear in Margaret's voice, on the horrible possibilities playing through her mind. "What are you going to do?" Emma asked. Dante's expression was carved from stone. "Whatever it takes." They reached her mother's house in 15 minutes, a drive that should have taken 30. 2 other cars were already there, sleek and dark, and Emma recognized the men who'd been with Dante at the restaurant. The front door was hanging open. Emma's heart stopped. She was out of the car before Dante could stop her, running up the front steps and into the house. The scene inside was chaos. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, and in the middle of the living room, Mark had his hands around Margaret's throat. "You called her!" he was snarling. "You betrayed me!" Emma screamed. Mark's head whipped toward her, his eyes wild and unfocused. He was more drunk than Emma had ever seen him. "There you are," he slurred, releasing Margaret, who crumpled to the floor gasping. "Little princess coming to save Mommy!" "Let her go," Emma said, her voice surprisingly steady despite her terror. "This is between you and me." "Damn right it is." Mark lunged toward her. He didn't make it 3 steps. Dante appeared between them like an avenging angel, and his fist connected with Mark's jaw with a crack that echoed through the house. Mark went down hard, blood spraying from his mouth. I warned you, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. I told you what would happen if you touched them again. Mark tried to get up, but Dante's foot on his chest kept him pinned to the floor. Emma rushed to her mother, helping Margaret sit up, checking for injuries. Mom, are you okay? Margaret nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Emma. I should have listened. I should have protected you. Shh, it's okay. You're going to be okay now. Dante's men had entered the house, surrounding Mark. One of them, Tony, Emma assumed, had pulled out his phone and was calling someone. Police are on their way, Tony said quietly. Mark laughed, the sound wet and ugly. Police won't touch me. I have connections. You have nothing, Dante interrupted. Your connections aren't nearly as powerful as you think. And the evidence against you, assault, domestic violence, terroristic threats, that's all very real. You can't prove anything. Actually, we can. Tony held up his phone. We've been recording since we arrived. Got the whole thing. You threatening your wife, you charging at Emma, everything. The color drained from Mark's face. Emma helped her mother to the couch, wrapping a blanket around Margaret's shaking shoulders. Then she walked back to where Dante stood over Mark. Get up, she said coldly. Mark blinked at her. What? I said get up. You like feeling powerful? You like hurting people smaller than you? Then get up and face me. Emma, Dante started, but she held up a hand. Mark struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. He was bigger than Emma, heavier, meaner. But for the first time in 3 years, Emma wasn't afraid of him. You took 3 years of my life, Emma said. 3 years where I walked on eggshells, where I protected my mother from your rage, where I made myself small so you could feel big. But I'm done. We're done. You don't get to decide. Yes, I do. Because you have no power anymore. You're going to jail. And even if you don't, even if somehow you weasel your way out of this, you'll have to answer to him. She jerked her thumb toward Dante. And something tells me that's a fight you'll lose. Mark's gaze darted to Dante. And Emma saw true fear there for the first time. That's right, Emma continued. You're not the scariest thing in my life anymore. You're just a pathetic drunk who hits women because it makes you feel like a man. But you're not a man. You're a coward. She turned away from him, from the life he represented, and walked into Dante's arms. Are you all right? Dante murmured against her hair. I am now. The police arrived minutes later, along with an ambulance for Margaret. Emma gave her statement, watched as Mark was handcuffed and dragged out to a patrol car, still protesting, still making threats that no one believed anymore. Her mother was being treated for minor injuries, bruises mostly, and shock, but the paramedics said she'd be fine physically. Emotionally was another story. I'll help her find a good therapist, Emma told Dante as they watched the ambulance drive away, Margaret inside, and a lawyer for the divorce. She'll need support. She'll have it, whatever she needs. Dante wrapped his arms around Emma from behind, and she leaned into his strength. What about you? What do you need? Emma thought about it. For 3 years, she'd needed safety. She'd needed escape. She'd needed someone to stand up to Mark. Now she needed something different. I need to know this is real, she said quietly. All of this. You appearing in my life, everything you've done for me. I need to know it's not just because you saw someone in trouble. I need to know you're not going to disappear once I'm fixed. Dante turned her in his arms until she was facing him. In the flashing lights from the patrol cars, his eyes were even more striking. Ice and silver and something that looked a lot like love. Emma Catherine Brooks, he said, and the use of her full name sent a shiver down her spine. I'm not here because I see you as a project or a charity case. I'm here because from the moment I saw you, I knew my life would never be the same. You're brave and loyal and so damn strong, even when you don't see it. And I want to spend every day proving to you that you deserve someone who sees that strength, who cherishes it, who stands beside you and not in front of you. That's a pretty speech, Emma whispered. It's the truth. Dante's thumb traced her cheekbone. I love you. I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other, but I love you anyway. And I'll keep loving you whether you say it back or not. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You're crazy. Probably. This is all moving too fast. Definitely. I don't even know if I can trust my own judgment anymore. That's fair. Dante pressed a kiss to her forehead. So don't trust your judgment. Trust your instincts. What are they telling you right now? Emma closed her eyes, let herself feel. The warmth of Dante's arms around her. The steady beat of his heart against her cheek. The sense of rightness that had been there since that first night in the restaurant. They're telling me, she said slowly, that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And that terrifies me. Why? Because I don't know how to be with someone who actually cares about me. I don't know how to accept love without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then we'll figure it out together. One day at a time. Dante pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. Not unless you tell me to. And even then, I'd probably argue. Despite everything, the police, the flashing lights, the destruction inside the house, Emma laughed. You're ridiculous. You love it? Emma took a breath. I think I love you. Dante's smile could have lit up the entire city. Yeah? Yeah, even though it's crazy and fast and probably a terrible idea. The best things usually are. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When he pulled away, he was still smiling. Move in with me. What? Move in with me. Your apartment is too small, and after everything that's happened, you shouldn't be alone. Move in with me. Dante. We've known each other for 3 weeks. 23 days, he corrected, and I don't care. I want you in my space, in my bed, in my life, permanently. Emma knew she should say no, should insist on more time, more caution. But when had caution ever gotten her anything, except more pain? Okay, she said. Dante blinked. Okay? Okay, I'll move in with you. But, she added quickly, seeing his triumphant expression, we're doing this right. I'm keeping my own space for a while, just in case. And we're going to therapy, couples therapy, because God knows we both have baggage. Done. Anything else? Yes. Emma poked him in the chest. You have to tell me the truth about your business. All of it. I'm not going to be with someone who keeps secrets from me. Dante's expression sobered. That's a conversation that will take all night. Good thing we have all night. Emma rose on her toes to kiss him again. And all the nights after that. For the rest of our lives, Dante agreed. And standing there in the wreckage of her old life, wrapped in the arms of a dangerous, complicated, beautiful man who loved her, Emma believed him. 6 months later, Dante proposed. Not with a public declaration or a flash mob or anything elaborate, just the two of them in his apartment, their apartment, with him on one knee and a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. I know we haven't been together long, he said. I know we're still figuring things out. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life figuring things out with you. Will you marry me? Emma said yes. Her mother came to the wedding, healthy and glowing and free. She'd left Mark, who was serving 3 years for assault, started therapy, and was rediscovering who she was beyond being someone's wife. I'm proud of you, Margaret told Emma on the morning of the wedding, for being brave enough to walk away, for being strong enough to accept love, for being everything I should have taught you to be. You taught me plenty, Emma said, squeezing her mother's hand. You taught me what love shouldn't look like. That was a lesson worth learning, too. The wedding was small, just close friends and family. Dante's associates, the ones who'd helped that night, stood as groomsmen. Sarah from the bookstore was Emma's maid of honor, and when Dante kissed her at the altar, Emma felt the last pieces of her old life fall away. She wasn't the scared girl from the restaurant anymore. She wasn't the woman who'd accepted cruelty as love. She was someone new, someone brave, someone loved. "I love you, Mrs. Romano," Dante whispered against her lips. "I love you too," Emma whispered back, and she meant it with everything she had. Because sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is exactly who you need. Sometimes protection and passion go hand in hand. Sometimes love comes fast and fierce and refuses to be ignored. Sometimes the man who saves you is the one who teaches you to save yourself. And sometimes that's the greatest love story of all. But Emma had no idea that her past was about to come crashing back with a vengeance. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, 4 months into their marriage. Emma was at the bookstore, reorganizing the mystery section, when Sarah came rushing over with wide, frightened eyes. "Emma, there's a man here asking for you. He's really insistent and kind of scary." Emma's stomach dropped. Her first thought was Mark. Maybe he'd been released early. Maybe he'd come looking for revenge. But when she turned toward the front of the store, she saw someone else entirely. A man in an expensive suit, older than Dante, with gray at his temples and cold, calculating eyes. 2 other men flanked him, and Emma recognized the setup immediately. This was someone from Dante's world. "Emma Romano?" the man asked, his voice smooth and cultured. "Yes." Emma's hand moved instinctively to her phone in her pocket. "Can I help you?" "I certainly hope so. My name is Vincent Castellano. I'm a business associate of your husband's." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Or perhaps I should say, I was a business associate, before he decided to cut ties with certain profitable ventures. Emma's blood ran cold. Dante had told her about Castellano, one of the men he'd been trying to distance himself from, one of the connections to his father's old business that straddled the line into criminal territory. "I don't know anything about my husband's business," Emma said carefully. "No? How disappointing." Castellano took a step closer, and Emma saw Sarah backing away toward the phone. "You see, your husband owes me rather a lot of money. Contracts that were broken, shipments that were canceled, very lucrative arrangements that were terminated without proper compensation. That's between you and Dante." "It was, until he stopped returning my calls." Castellano's smile turned dangerous. "So I thought perhaps a message through his lovely new wife might get his attention." Emma's thumb found the emergency button on her phone, a special feature Dante had insisted on installing, one that would immediately alert his security team. She pressed it 3 times in quick succession. "You should leave," Emma said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "This is harassment. This is business, Mrs. Romano, and in business sometimes we need to apply pressure to get results." Castellano nodded to one of his men, who moved toward her. Emma didn't wait. She grabbed the heavy bookend from the shelf beside her and threw it at the approaching man, then ran toward the back of the store. Behind her, she heard Castellano's curse, heard footsteps pounding after her. She burst through the employee door into the back room, her hands shaking as she tried to lock it, but the door slammed open before she could turn the bolt, and rough hands grabbed her arms. "That wasn't very polite," Castellano said, appearing in the doorway. "Now we're going to have to do this the hard way." "Let her go!" Sarah's voice rang out from behind him. She was holding her phone up, recording. "I've already called the police. They're on their way." For a moment, everyone froze. Then Castellano's expression hardened. "Grab her too." The second man moved toward Sarah, and Emma felt rage overtake her fear. She'd escaped one abuser. She wasn't about to let another man intimidate her into submission. She drove her heel down onto the instep of the man holding her, exactly like Dante had taught her in their self-defense sessions. When his grip loosened, she twisted free and grabbed a box cutter from the workbench. "I said let her go," Emma hissed, the blade extended. Castellano actually laughed. "You've got spirit. I can see why Dante's so smitten. But that little knife isn't going to stop us, sweetheart. Maybe not, but I will. Dante's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Emma's heart soared as she saw him appear behind Castellano, with Tony and 3 other men at his back. Dante's expression was absolutely murderous. "Dante," Castellano said smoothly, turning to face him. "How lovely of you to join us." "I was just having a chat with your wife about our unfinished business." "By threatening her in her workplace?" Dante's voice was ice. "By putting your hands on her?" "I was simply making a point." "You made a mistake." Dante moved forward, and Emma saw something she'd never seen before. Pure, cold fury radiating from him. "I told you our business was concluded. I told you I was out. You don't get to just walk away from our arrangements. Your father understood that. Your father knew that loyalty." "My father's dead," Dante interrupted. "And I'm not him. I built something new, something legitimate, and you were warned to stay away from it. Away from me. Away from my wife." Castellano's smile faded. "You think you can just abandon your roots? Pretend you're not one of us? I'm not one of you. Not anymore. Then you're a fool, and your pretty little wife is going to pay for your foolishness." Dante moved so fast Emma barely saw it. One moment he was standing in the doorway. The next he had Castellano slammed against the wall, his forearm across the older man's throat. "Listen very carefully," Dante said, his voice deadly soft. "If you ever come near my wife again, if you even speak her name, I will destroy everything you've built. Your businesses, your reputation, your freedom, all of it. And unlike you, I have the resources and the connections to actually do it. The legitimate kind. You're bluffing. Try me." Dante released him with a shove. "Tony, make sure Mr. Castellano and his associates leave. And escort them off the property. If they come back, call the police." "You'll regret this," Castellano snarled, straightening his suit. "You can't protect her forever. Watch me." Emma watched as Tony and the other men herded Castellano and his thugs toward the exit. The moment they were gone, her knees buckled, and Dante was there, catching her, pulling her against his chest. "I've got you," he murmured. "You're safe. I've got you." Emma was shaking, adrenaline crashing through her system. "He said you owe him money. He said he's lying, or at least he's twisting the truth." Dante pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "When I took over the business from my father, there were contracts in place, some of them with people like Castellano. Gray market stuff, things that could get us all in trouble. I've been systematically ending those arrangements, moving everything above board. Castellano doesn't like losing the revenue stream. So he came after me. So he made the worst mistake of his life." Dante's jaw was tight. "I should have warned you, should have told you he might try something like this. I just thought—" He broke off, running a hand through his hair. "I thought I'd handled it." Sarah appeared in the doorway, still clutching her phone. "Emma? Are you okay? Should I call an ambulance?" "No, I'm fine. Just shaken." Emma squeezed Dante's hand, then moved toward her friend. "Sarah, I'm so sorry you got caught up in that. Are you all right?" "Me? I'm fine. That was insane." Sarah's hands were trembling. "Who were those people? What did they want?" Emma glanced at Dante, who nodded slightly. "Time for honesty. It's complicated. Dante's family business used to be involved with some questionable people. He's been working to cut ties, but one of those people didn't want to let go. That's what this was about." "Is it going to happen again?" Sarah asked quietly. "No," Dante said firmly. "I'm going to make sure of it." But Emma saw the worry in his eyes, and she knew this wasn't over. Not really. The police came and took statements. Dante made calls, lots of calls, to lawyers and business associates and people whose names Emma didn't recognize. By the time they got home that evening, Emma was exhausted, physically and emotionally. I need to tell you something, Dante said as they sat in their living room, the city lights twinkling below them. And you're not going to like it. Emma's stomach tightened. What? Castellano's not going to give up. Men like him, they see backing down as weakness. And now that I've humiliated him in front of his people? Dante shook his head. He's going to escalate. Meaning what? Meaning we need to be smart. You can't go to the bookstore alone anymore. You can't go anywhere alone. I know you hate the idea of security following you around, but it's necessary, Emma finished. I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Dante took her hands in his. I never wanted this life to touch you. That's why I've been working so hard to get out, to build something clean. But it's taking time. And in the meantime, we deal with it together, Emma interrupted. That's what you told me, remember? We figure things out together. This isn't what you signed up for. Neither was a drunk, abusive stepfather, but I survived that. I'll survive this too. Emma squeezed his hands. But I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. What else is out there that might come back to bite us? Dante was quiet for a long moment, and Emma could see him weighing his words. Finally, he said, Castellano's the biggest threat, but he's not the only one. There are 3 other associates from my father's time who aren't happy about the changes I'm making. I've been working with federal prosecutors, actually, giving them information in exchange for immunity and protection. Emma's eyes widened. You're cooperating with the feds? I'm trying to do the right thing, but it takes time to build a case, to gather evidence, and in the meantime, I'm exposed. We're exposed. How long? 6 months, maybe less. They're close to indictments. Once those come down, the threat level drops significantly. 6 months. Half a year of looking over their shoulders, of living with security, of wondering when the next Vincent Castellano would appear. Okay, Emma said. Dante blinked. Okay. Okay, we deal with it. 6 months isn't forever, and at the end of it, you'll have the clean business you want, the life you want, the life we want. Emma moved closer to him. I married you knowing you had a complicated past. I'm not going to abandon you just because that past is making things difficult. You're incredible, you know that? I'm stubborn. There's a difference. Emma kissed him softly. But I meant what I said at our wedding, for better or worse. This is definitely qualifying as worse, but we'll get through it. They did get through it, though not without challenges. Emma had security with her everywhere, a rotating team of professionals who were polite but ever present. She couldn't go for a coffee without someone watching the doors, couldn't take a walk without someone trailing 10 feet behind. It was suffocating and necessary in equal measure. Dante threw himself into his work with the prosecutors, spending long hours with lawyers and accountants and federal agents, building an airtight case against Castellano and the others. Emma saw the toll it took on him. The exhaustion, the stress, the weight of betraying his father's legacy even as he built something better. You're doing the right thing, she told him one night as they lay in bed, his head on her chest, her fingers running through his hair. Your father might not have understood, but that doesn't make it wrong. Sometimes I wonder if he'd hate me for this, for turning on his associates, his friends. Or maybe he'd be proud that you're strong enough to choose a different path. Maybe he'd want better for you than he had for himself. Emma pressed a kiss to the top of his head. Either way, I'm proud of you. What you're doing takes courage. I'm terrified, Dante admitted quietly. Not for me. I can handle whatever comes. But for you. If something happened to you because of my choices, nothing's going to happen to me. You've got an entire security team making sure of that. Emma tilted his face up to look at her. And even if something did, I wouldn't blame you. This is my choice, Dante. Being with you, standing beside you, that's my choice. No one's forcing me. You're too good for me. Probably, but you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed her then, and for a little while, they could forget about federal prosecutors and dangerous men and the complicated mess of his past. The breakthrough came 5 months later, on an ordinary Thursday morning. Dante burst into their apartment with a smile Emma hadn't seen in weeks. "They made the arrests," he said, scooping her up and spinning her around. "All of them. Castellano, Martinez, Chen, everyone on the list. The indictments came down this morning, and by noon, they were all in custody." Emma's heart soared. "It's over? Really over?" "Really over. The prosecutors have everything they need. And with the evidence I provided, there's no way they're getting out. We're talking decades in prison, Emma. Decades." Emma wrapped her arms around his neck, tears of relief streaming down her face. "We're safe. We're actually safe." "We're safe," Dante confirmed, his own voice thick with emotion. "And I can finally give you the life I promised. No more security detail, no more looking over our shoulders. Just us, building our future." That night, they celebrated with dinner at the same small restaurant where they'd had their first date. And as Emma looked across the table at her husband, this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man who'd fought so hard to build something better, she felt a wave of love so intense it nearly overwhelmed her. "Thank you," she said softly. Dante raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For choosing me. For choosing us. For being brave enough to walk away from the easy path and take the hard one instead." Emma reached across the table to take his hand. "You could have kept doing things the old way, could have stayed in that world. But you didn't. You chose something better." "I chose you," Dante corrected. "Everything else followed from that." "Then I guess we saved each other. I guess we did." They toasted to new beginnings, to hard-won freedom, to a future that was finally, truly theirs. And as Emma looked into her husband's eyes, she realized something profound. She'd come so far from that terrified girl in the restaurant, the one who'd accepted abuse as her reality. She'd learned to stand up for herself, to accept love, to fight for what she deserved. But more than that, she'd learned that sometimes strength meant accepting help. That sometimes love meant standing beside someone through their darkest moments. That sometimes the best thing you could do was choose someone and keep choosing them every single day, no matter what came. Dante Romano had saved her that night in the restaurant, but she'd saved him too, from a future he didn't want, from a past he couldn't escape alone, from a life that would have destroyed him eventually. They'd saved each other. And that, Emma thought as Dante kissed her hand across the table, was the truest kind of love there was.